What it do, bruh? Talk of the town, Nintendo, Doc Trey, still holding it down, still make the best games, and you know this, bro. It's the truth. You don't like it, you can have that seatbelt.
Alright, so I'm finally gonna do a video on this subject because I hear this comment time after time after time, and I've been hearing it for the last couple generations. And whenever a Nintendo fan is discussing specs, discussing graphics, some idiot comes in and says, "How are you going to be talking about graphics as a Nintendo fan?" Now, there's several reasons why that's a retarded statement. But pretty much the first being, so because Nintendo systems aren't the most powerful, that means that you can't know or discuss technical specs of systems? Really? By that logic, you couldn't be a car enthusiast unless you drove the fastest car. You see how stupid that sounds? But here is the funny part, and here's what's so ironic about that statement. What's funny about that is that the average Nintendo fan actually knows a lot more about specs than Sony or Xbox fans. That is the hilarious part. Now, but there is actually a reason for that. And the reason that most Nintendo fans, the average Nintendo fan, knows more about specs and graphics and processors than the average Xbox or PlayStation fan is simple. Nintendo specs are secretive. Nintendo's secretive with their specs, so you actually have to do research. You actually have to know what you're talking about when you're talking about specs in regards to Nintendo, because it's not as simple as just looking at a provided spec sheet and comparing numbers across the identical architecture. Now, how this started really with Nintendo fans and pretty much doing all this research on specs pretty much started with the GameCube. When the GameCube came out, even though anyone with a working brain knows when all is said and done that the GameCube was a lot more powerful than quite a bit more powerful than the PlayStation 2 and could match the Xbox in some areas and actually exceed it in some areas. But back then, it kind of blew people's minds because up until that time, we just looked at spec numbers. We just looked at the clock speed numbers. And that would tell us which was more powerful than which. The GameCube changed all of that using a completely different architecture, even though it was clocked lower. And even though they were giving out raw numbers, or didn't give out raw numbers, they gave out numbers that were significantly lower than what the competition claimed they could do, yet still managed to outpace and match them. And ever since then, that's when Nintendo fans started actually researching this technology instead of just simply looking at the spec sheet. You guys think I'm full of crap, but think about it. Go to any forum that you've seen technical discussion on gaming hardware, whether it's NeoGAF, whether it's Beyond 3D, even on YouTube. Most of the people there that are respected, that people go to get their information or ask questions, or the people that know the most about hardware on those platforms are usually Nintendo fans. They're not Nintendo haters. They're Nintendo fans. Because like I said, the other companies, they just put the specs out there and people pretty much just compare the numbers, not even knowing what that crap really means. Nintendo fans, on average, know a lot more about specs and hardware compared to Sony and Microsoft fans. That's a fact.